All right, so how did that challenge go? I hope you really gave it a go because there's a lot of new things that we've learned in the past few lessons, and it's really good to just try it out yourself and make sure that you can get it working. So, the first thing that I asked you to do was to create a new file inside our calculator directory, and that was going to be called BMI calculator.html. And so now we have a new page that is going to be the HTML code for our BMI calculator page. So I'm going to add in the HTML boilerplate and I'm going to call it BMI calculator instead of just simply calculator. And then we're going to add our form that is going to not have a class, but it will have an action that is going to relate to the route that we want to process this form on. And that route, we asked you to call it BMI calculator. The method is again going to be post because we're sending information to this route rather than getting information from it. And then we're going to have again two inputs. The first input is going to be the weight, and it's not going to have a value, but we do need a placeholder so that we can tell the user that they should put the weight into this input. And then the second input is going to have a name of height. And again, it needs a placeholder of height. And finally, let's just add a button and make sure that you change the type to submit because this is going to trigger the post request of the form. If it's just a button, it's not going to do that. And then let's delete the name attribute and give our button some text. Let's call it calculate BMI. And finally, I'm just going to add an H1 that says BMI calculator so we know which page we landed on. So this is all we need to do inside our BMI calculator.html, and we now have to head into our calculator.js, our server code, in order to map out those routes. So below our get and post for our home route, I'm going to add some new routes. And the first thing I need is to specify a get. What happens when the user goes to the BMI calculator page? Well, in this case, we're going to have a callback that is going to send them a file. So I'm going to use res.sendFile, and the file I want to send is going to be __ dear name, so the directory name, and then it's going to be / BMI calculator.html. So let's spin up our server by saying nodemon calculator.js, and once it's started and we've got server is running on port 3000, then let's head over to port 3000, and more specifically we're going to try and make a GET request by accessing our page at BMI calculator, and we've got BMI calculator. So here we've got our two inputs showing up and our calculate BMI button. So at this point, if we put in a weight and put in a height, then nothing happens because we haven't specified what should happen when somebody tries to make a post request to this route. So let's do that now. Let's say app.post, targeting the / BMI calculator route. Then we're going to have a callback with a request and a response. And then we're going to create a new variable called weight, which is going to be set to the request.body.weight. And remember that weight parameter name comes from the name attribute here in the input. So we're going to store the value of this input inside this variable called weight. And we need to convert it into a number, but not just any number. We want it to be a decimal number. So instead of simply just saying number brackets, we're going to use the parse float that we used before when we created our BMI calculator. So now I can do the same thing with height. I can pass float, and the string I want to pass is the request.body.height parameter. And now I can calculate my BMI by creating a new variable called BMI, and it's going to be set to equal to weight divided by height times height. Or you can use math.pow or just transplant the code that you had when you completed the BMI calculator challenge. Now, the final thing I need to do is I need to send back a response. And I'm going to send back the text that says, your BMI is, and then I'm going to append this BMI variable we've got here. So now our server has a way of responding to GET requests that go to the BMI calculator route, and it's got a way of responding to POST requests on the BMI calculator route. And now if I hit save, then NodeMon is going to restart my server, and I can reload this page, put in my weight and my height, and press calculate BMI. Then I get your BMI is 19.444 something. So I really hope you gave this a go, and if you had any bugs or any issues, then after having watched this, it's a good idea to give it another go and see if you can fix any bugs that you see. Now, in the next module, we're going to be learning all about APIs and how to build a newsletter website that we're going to deploy live onto the web, where you can collect people's emails and save it into MailChimp so that you can start getting a newsletter list going. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next module.